Hello. You'll remember from Monday's devotional that this one for the midweek is geared for the children. I'm going to be reading from this book, Building on the Rock, a collection of Christian stories for children. This is a little 4-volume series that Joel Beakey up at Puritan Reformed Theological Seminary, a friend of mine, helped put together of stories that he had collected and other friends had collected. It's published by the Reformation book publishers up in Grand Rapids. And as I said, there are 4 volumes. You see they're small, they're inexpensive, and if you like to buy some, you don't find them online, let me know. I know how to get to them. Building on the Rock. And it's something that I read to the children all through the years. Most of these stories were read multiple times because as we get through one volume, they'd say, hey, let's go back and remember that story? And we'd go back and read it. And so many hours in these little books. So what I want to do is just do this for a few weeks, even particularly while we're not having midweek services. But we'll see how long this goes. But I'm just going to begin in the beginning of Volume 1, Building on the Rock, Book 1. This one's entitled Flying Bread. Flying Bread. Wilsey and Waylo sat shivering in their hut. A fierce wind blasted the icy snow down through the smoke hole. We may as well admit it, complained Helena, the children's grandmother. We're going to starve. The 3 Indians huddled around the little fire. It burned poorly, for the wood was wet. Clouds of smoke stung their eyes. I found 10 of our sheep dead just now, stated Waylo miserably. 10 more? Cried the old woman. Before this week is over, they'll all be dead from cold and hunger. Then there'll be nothing left for us to eat. She closed her eyes. She began chanting a heathen prayer in her own language. Grandma, interrupted Wilsey, we still have a little bit of flour. I can make 2 or 3 loaves of bread. If we eat 1 slice each per meal, we'll have enough for about 4 days. And then what? Growled Waylo. By that time, I think God will have sent help, Wilsey answered cheerfully. Waylo laughed bitterly. If I could ride to the white man for help, then maybe God could help us. But now that my pony is dead, I'm stuck here. Grandma's right, Wilsey. If it is the will of the gods that we must die, I'm ready. Grandmother knelt by the fire and fanned the weak flames. It would be hours before the lamb chops would be ready to eat. Waylo tried not to think how good the meat would taste. Wilsey whisked the snow off an old trunk and took out her Bible. She wanted her grandmother to know the one who could send help from above. Wilsey was sure the Lord would answer her prayer for food. She told the story of Elijah and the ravens. When Elijah was hungry, God sent ravens with food. Don't you think God will help us if we trust him? Perhaps, said Helena thoughtfully. Wilsey noticed a hopeful look in her eyes. I'd like to see that happen, thought Waylo. The next day was bitterly cold. More sheep died, for they had no shelter from the wind. There they stood, frozen stiff. They had not even toppled over. Oh, Lord God, Send us help before we die, for Jesus' sake. Wilsie prayed. Look, shouted Waylo, interrupting Wilsie's silent prayers. Grandma, Wilsie, come outside. There's an airplane. Sure enough, they could hear the faint hum of an airplane. Wilsie put on her coat and grabbed her red sweater. Let's wave to them, she shouted. Maybe they'll see us. The children waved and shouted at the tops of their voices, forgetting that the pilots would not be able to hear them. But the pilots had seen them. The men in the little plane were on the lookout for Indians in such need as they were in. Helena watched the small yellow plane swoop low over their hut. With tears in her eyes, she saw strong sacks of flour, beans, sugar, and dried fruit being dropped from the plane. Waylo stared open-mouthed as a side of bacon fell a short distance from where he stood. Wilsie jumped aside to dodge packages of coffee and raisins. Indeed, the heavens were raining food. Helena was not ashamed of her tears as she gathered the food into the hut. There would be enough for the rest of the winter. It was the white man's God who sent his raven to us, she said, hugging her grandchildren. God fulfilled the bodily needs of these 3 Indians. He can do this for you too, boys and girls. But he can also fulfill your spiritual needs. Do you ask him for this? That's the end of that first short story, compiled for us by our friend Joel Beakey. Bread from heaven. But they ask an important question there at the end, don't they? God can take care of all of our physical needs, and Jesus said he would. He said he did in Matthew chapter 6. He said even the birds, we feed and clothe the birds, the Father and I do. How much more so will we take care of those whom we love, our little lambs of God? Trust Jesus. Ask him for your faith. Ask him for salvation. And ask him for your daily bread. Remember, that's part of the prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. Let's don't forget that. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'll read you another one real soon. Look forward to seeing many of you this coming Sunday at your specified time. Get mom and dad to look it up in the care group list. Read that letter that I just sent out this morning. And we look forward to seeing you. God bless and good night.